Jennifer Clark,
Yes.
thank you for agreeing to sit down with me. This is going to be a different interview. It's not 60 minutes, it's more of a conversation. But you are Mike Clark's wife.
Yes.
And Mike Clark retired from the Lombard Police Department when did he retire?
March of 23.
March of 2023. Tell us a little bit about your relationship. When did you guys meet and when did you guys get married?
So we went to high school together. We didn't really, he's a year older than I am. We didn't really hang out in high school or anything, but we knew who each other were. And after I graduated, we had met again, re-met. And so that was back in 90. And then we got married in 2000.
So you knew Mike before he was a police officer.
Yes.
And you went through that process with him of becoming a police officer and his decision to become a police officer in Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of moved you out of the area that you had grown up in and went to high school.
Yes.
So what were some of your expectations? What did you think being a police officer's wife was going to be like?
You know, I really didn't know. I didn't have a whole lot of expectations. This was our plan. We were testing and visiting all the departments and up into Wisconsin, even a couple of them. I knew it was going to be different than being a mechanic and being an electrician. We'd been to all the orientations where they tell you you'll probably end up in divorce. So we didn't really see that for us, and it has not happened, thank goodness. But we just kind of went with it.
So you didn't have any expectations going into it. You didn't have a picture in your mind of this is what being a cop's wife is going to be like, really. So when it actually happened, were there any shocks or surprises, challenges? How about any challenges associated with the job? I know Mike spent a lot of time on midnights.
Yeah, so the long hours hours is for something that is first place. His job is, takes first place now. And so that was different. The midnights was tough. That is, every cop has to deal with that at some time or another. It's hard. It's hard to not have him around. And then it's hard when he's not sleeping. It's hard on him. Makes him not so pleasant to be around sometimes. And that's frustrating because when we're together, we finally get to do things together and we're not getting along. And it's not the expectation. You expect to have fun and be able to spend time. So that was very difficult. And I think probably like progressing through his career, and there were with the kids and their activities, the school functions and even family functions, everything. It was kind of like being a single mom. And I remember there were times that school families would meet him and they were shocked because they thought I was a single mom. So that was interesting.
So Mike starts out with the Rochelle Police Department. Mm-hmm. You guys buy a house there. Mm-hmm. You move out there. And then what is it, a couple of years later?
No.
That he comes back to Lombard?
It was a year.
A year later.
Yeah. So, I think he graduated the academy in February or March. We moved out there in July. I can't remember exactly. I think it was about a year later that he came back. So he commuted until we moved, and then he commuted after we moved.
So what was that like for you? I mean, was there did you guys have a sit-down discussion of, look, this isn't the place that I want to make my career, even though I thought it was, it's not. And how does that, because that's a pretty big deal, right? You bought a house and now you're moving to Lombard. What's that decision process like for the two of you?
It was just, okay, we can't commute, and he's got this better opportunity in a bigger department and back with all of our family. And so we went with it. We moved back out.
So Mike gets to the Lombard Police Department. We talked about a lot of time on midnights. Mm-hmm. And was there ever a time where, I don't know, that a particular incident or a series of incidents where you were just really fearful about him being a police officer?
I'm not sure if all wives approach it the same way, but I approached it as this was his job. This was his job like any other job. He's going to work and he's coming home, regardless of the shift that he was on. I couldn't I couldn't live in fear every single day that when I kiss him goodbye, he might not come home. So I just didn't allow that as part of my process ever. There were times I had to consciously say, now stop that, but it was just how I chose to live life, because I trusted him. He was good at his job. So I just couldn't live in fear like that. I remember a friend asked me like, oh, it must be awful being married to a police officer and you must be so scared. And I was like, no, because he's going to work and he's coming home. And I don't have to worry about that. So
This episode is brought to you by the 555 Group.
Looking for top-tier security solutions backed by real experience? The 555 Group, founded by seasoned law enforcement professionals, delivers elite security services tailored to your needs. With expertise in risk assessment, executive protection, and site security, they provide unmatched professionalism and reliability. Whether safeguarding businesses, events, or individuals, the 555 Group ensures safety with precision and integrity. Trust the experts. Trust the 555 Group.
Was there ever a time in Mike's career where you didn't want him to be a police officer?
I'd have to say no. I don't think there was a time. I know this was his dream from before he knew me, and he worked very hard to get where he was. I was supportive 100% behind him from going to all of those orientations to when he worked. And I could not be more proud of everything he's accomplished. I think he was born to do this job, and he did it well. Everything he touched was he excelled at it. He's my tactical expert. Is what it's true. He's everything he's done in his career has been just amazing to me. And I'm proud and honored to have been able to walk alongside him for it. It's been an accomplishment for me too. I'm very proud of him.
How do you think the job impacted you personally? Did it have an impact on you? I mean, it seems like you had a pretty pragmatic approach to him doing the job. He's going to work and he's coming home, and I'm not thinking otherwise. But was there ever an impact on you personally? I'm
more aware, situational awareness. I'm more aware of things around me. I know my back's to the door, so he can see it. And when we go out, I'm on his left, because in case he needs to take care of anything, it's just how it's just how we end up. I probably don't trust people's intentions like I originally had. And after 26 years, I'm sure I'm a tad more cynical, less naive. But also, I feel like I'm more capable and independent in a way. And that if he was sleeping or he was at work and I needed something done, I just did it. So I learned how to do tools. And there were many times he'd wake up or he'd come home and I'd have a room disheveled and I'm halfway through painting it just because I decided it needed painting and he was busy. So in the kids thing, I learned to do things on my own. So, and just handle what needed to be handled.
What about Mike was with SWAT a very long time. How did that impact you? That
was, as far as circling back to when I said I chose not to live in fear, that was a little different, because when the pager goes off in the middle of the night and he jumps up and gets ready and I jump up and get his things ready and then he leaves, that kind of sits with you a little bit more, and I definitely have to be talking to myself like, just remember, he's good at what he does, he's going to be fine, he'll come home, I'll always get that text when he's done. So that was a little different on that, but it wasn't, I was going to say it wasn't all the time. Boy, there were times at the end where I swear that thing went off every week, or more often than that. But yeah, so that was a little bit different on that scale of, it's not your regular 9 to 5 or 11 to 7, or, you know what I mean?
So you hear a lot about stereotypes in cops, right? You mentioned it briefly that, cops all end up divorced, that cops can abuse alcohol, and there's all of these stereotypes attached to the profession. Any stereotypes that you ever saw that maybe had an impact on your relationship, or no, Mike was all aces?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for that one.
Well, let me ask you this, because here's a stereotype that cops come home and they don't discuss their day.
Mm.
Did Mike ever come home and share his day with you, or is that just one of the things that he left work at work and home was home?
We did not go into detail about his day. There was always how was your day? The kids would say, how was your day? I was in school, I was training, this and that. He shared the funny things that might have happened, but he always shielded us from the bad, the scary, the dangerous. And he always just made a point to not share those things. I think if there's something I would change, it would be that. Cops are very private. He's a very private person. Not all of them, but he is. And I feel that it's not something you should hold on to by yourself. And if he could have discussed that and shared the burden a little bit, it might have been easier for him. Might have been harder for me, but still, that's what partners do.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it is interesting because that's one of the things, the more people the more cops I sit down and talk to, the more you become aware of this cumulative effect of, 20, 30 years of very brief but sharp incidents of trauma that they experience and they carry it. Was there anything that you ever felt you couldn't do because your husband was a police officer, or did his job have an impact on your ability to go out and do things?
We typically would not go to places that he couldn't carry, because that's his safety. That's him. That's who he is. And there wasn't a whole lot of places that would impact.
So no Disney World.
Well, right. And I do remember, like, Great America, Six Flags, I'm dating myself, saying, what if we took the kids there? And absolutely not. And I don't even like Great America that much, but it was definitely an off the table, because they didn't allow that, and he's not doing that. So there were, socially, we didn't socialize with civilians. We didn't go out a lot as couples with other people, and it was frustrating at the time, but I get that that's not his people. And it's funny because he would get around cop circles or military circles, and you'd hear him talk and have a good time and socialize, and then we'd get to like the school fundraiser and he's just watching them. So there was that.
Well, there's one of those stereotypes, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
This is not exactly what you were asking, I think, with the question. We didn't get to do as much as together, but I think his police career, and it came with its perks. Whereas when he'd have a weekend off that was during the week, we did a lot of our Christmas shopping or grocery shopping or went to the pumpkin patch, and there was nobody there. So we got to avoid chaos and crowds and the things that police avoid in their families.
How did you cope with midnights? Because it's granted, it impacts Mike and it impacts his sleep cycle, and it definitely presents challenges, but it impacts everybody else in the house as well. And again, I was a guy that worked a ton of midnights also. And so how did that impact you during the day? Well,
it's tough. You have to be quiet.
Yeah.
You have to be quiet because he's sleeping. We had the air conditioner, a window unit to make noise, and we'd have a big, a box fan outside the door, and then just keeping the dogs and the kids quiet as much as we could, which sometimes you can't do that.
Yeah. So I asked Mike about his decision to retire, and that in many respects for Mike, it sounds like it kind of came down to two things. The sleep issue. He just it was too much for him, and it was very unhealthy, and trying to balance that with his reserve commitments and the SWAT commitments, and it was a lot. And then he kind of mathed it out. He did the math and financially where he was at. How did you feel about Mike's decision to retire? What were your emotions attached to that decision?
I was 100% behind it. It was time. It was time. He's hate to say he did his time, but it was exhausting. He was getting a couple of hours of sleep and working a job where you need more than that. And it was hard. It was hard on him. And the police these days, it's a different job.
Yeah.
So
being a police officer becomes part of your identity. It's more than what you do. It's
oh yeah.
who you are. And it really, you can't do something for 30 years and not have it become part of your fiber. And then the same goes for spouse. Have you seen a difference in Mike since he's left the job and now he's kind of got a completely different job that he thought he was going to be doing originally when he started out and doing some auto body work or working in a body shop? Have you seen a difference in Mike? Has he been able to unplug and sort of decompress a little bit, or is he the same old Mike?
No, he's relaxed.
Is he?
It's nice. He still is on guard, and he still is, he'll always be on that, but he's definitely relaxed more.
Did you ever feel you were treated differently because your husband was a cop?
I feel like there wasn't a lot of opportunity for that because we were very private and wouldn't tell people. We weren't the people who wore like the badge and the stickers on the cars, and that's not us. We're very private. So a lot of people didn't know. I know, I remember one time a new neighbor was chatting with me in the front yard, and she's like, "Well, what does your husband do?" I was like, "Oh, he works in Lombard." "Oh, where?" "For the village." And she's like, "Oh, what does he do?" And I was like, "Oh, how's your little girl doing?" Like I would change the subject. I would play dumb. I'd be, get just, "Oh, I gotta go handle something." We didn't talk about it. So I don't think we afforded the opportunity. And we didn't, like I said, we didn't publicize it, so you wouldn't know by looking at us. Well, some might, but.
And I think that Mike has that look where it's only a couple things that Mike could be doing. So, how unfortunate it is that we all belong to a profession and our spouses directly participate in that, where we're in a place where you're hesitant to share what you do because you just don't know how people will treat you. And not just that they'll treat you bad, but all of a sudden they're going to tell you a story about how some cop was a piece of crap, or the time they got stopped and how that cop didn't know what they were doing, or worst case, they start asking you for favors. And it's an incredibly challenging lifestyle. So with that, do you have any words of advice for that spouse, man or woman, who might be dating or married to someone that's thinking about becoming a police officer, or maybe is in the academy right now?
Be patient. Be honest. Communicate. It's not always easy. Find some people who can support you, and that might not be people outside of law enforcement. So once you're in that department, go to dinner with people that your spouse has met. Go with another officer and his spouse or her spouse. Doesn't have to be a lot of people, but that'll be a good support and somebody who knows what you're going through. But just support each other and don't give up.
Jennifer, I want to thank you for sharing your journey with the badge, because you're right. It is an accomplishment for both the police officer and their spouse. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.